You're watching the 11th episode of the Pinfall with me, Danny Bell, featuring Calumet's head coach, Jim Wadkins, for the second episode of the evolution of wrestling. This is the presentation of Region Sports Network, where the region comes to wrestle. Welcome to the Pinfall. I'm your host, Danny Bell, and we have an amazing guest tonight. We have back one of the best coaches in this area and a knowledge of wealth with everything that he brings to the table. We have Coach Jim Wadkins, and he had a great season coming up this year for his team. But other than his progress with his wrestlers, what he's going to bring up today is from our first episode. We went from basically the Bible to 1980, and we're here now from 1980 to present day, other than the sectionals, because that hasn't happened yet. But Coach Wadkins has really put forth months of effort to put in all this information, and we hope you guys appreciate it. And without further ado, Coach, thank you for joining us for episode 2.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for allowing me to do this. It's been a labor of love, but I wouldn't suggest anybody try to do this and be a full-time teacher and try to coach a team. Now, you apparently haven't been watching very closely because we've been struggling this winter. We've had everything go wrong that could go wrong in a wrestling program, with kids with weight and skin and attrition, but we're still plugging. So we're hoping to get a handful of guys through our sectional Saturday. We've got a couple of pretty good seniors that have had good seasons, but tonight we're going to talk about a bunch of old timers and kind of hopefully take some people down a road of nostalgia in wrestling in Northwest Indiana.
I'm sure we will. I got an opportunity to watch you guys a couple times, and the good thing about watching Calumet teams is you already know what you and your coaching staff always brings to the table. And I'm learning every single time when you think that you guys have to reload, that there's consistently names that are just starting to pop out. And you're like, whoa, I didn't even know about this kid. I didn't know about this. He's good. Look, he's got talent doing this. Whoa, where was this kid at? And there's always somebody like that at Calumet. And that's
I hope you get to do that Saturday at Portage.
Hey, that we'll have Sean McMurray there on there, and he's gonna that will already have happened by the time we air this. But
we're gonna talk about Sean some tonight. I don't even know. I don't think I've ever spoken to him, but I know him, so
he's such a good guy.
Okay, we ready?
Yes, sir. Let's do this.
I've entitled this "A Not So Brief History of the Indiana High School Wrestling State Tournament and Wrestling in the Calumet Region." Part 2, the modern era from 1981 to the present. The 1980s. In the first episode, I used a plain gray backdrop with Calumet Wrestling arched in black and maroon kind of behind me. It was kind of boring. It was kind of plain. In this second episode, I've tried to upgrade a bit. I've learned to use Zoom a little bit better. I'm surrounding myself with some historic photos of teams, wrestlers, coaches, and venues that I talked about in the presentation. The big backdrop directly behind me is the Ford Center in Evansville. It's the site that hosted the 2024 Wrestling State Finals as the NBA All-Star Game was being played at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, the Pacers' home facility. Starting from your lower left as you're looking at this, and moving clockwise, the 1927 state champion Wabash Apaches, and on the lower right-hand corner of that picture is Billy Tom, who won a couple state championships at Wabash, and then became the head coach at Indiana, and probably more than anybody else in Indiana wrestling history was the father of wrestling in the state of Indiana. He really started the dominance of some of the collegiate programs, and he really got an awful lot of coaches came through under his leadership and populated the high schools around Indiana. Find my place here. An early high school wrestling meet being held in a squared circle ring there to just above the Wabash team. Southport Fieldhouse, the site of the state finals from 1960 to 1980. The 1980 individual state champions. I wish I was in that picture, but I was not. But a couple of guys that beat me are in it. That was my senior season. Market Square Arena is above that. the site of the state finals from 1981 to 1999. There's a black and white picture there of Brent B.J. Farote of Belmont High School. He was the first state champion crowned at Market Square Arena, and he was the future head coach of the Braves when they won the 1994 state championship as a state championship team. He's one of only a handful of coaches that won an individual state championship and they coached the team state championship during their coaching careers. The inaugural Indiana High School girls wrestling state finalists above me, that was in 2017 at Hamilton Heights High School. Me and Andy Trevino are there with our first girl state champion, Caitlin Clark. Myself and Coach Trevino. Nope, I'm skipping something here. Hang on. Four-time unbeaten state champion Alex Sertzis of Griffith, holding up four fingers when he won his fourth title in 2004. Conseco Fieldhouse, Bankers Life Fieldhouse, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, whatever you want to call it, is in that upper right corner. And it's been the site of the state finals since 2000. The Calumet Region's, Calumet Region's first IHS GW state champ. I spoke about that already. Me and Andy and Caitlin are in the picture there. A panorama shot that one of my former wrestlers took right at the moment when AJ Fowler took down the young man from Brownsburg to pin him in the state championship in 2019. And if you look closely, you can see it was taken with the backdrop of our Calumet fan section going bonkers in the background. AJ celebrating with Coach Trevino and myself after his come from behind victory when he knocked my glasses off.
That was such a great picture.
I almost lost a $500 pair of glasses that night. So,
oh man,
the IHSAA logo that they put out this year commemorating the girls' inaugural state finals this season. There's an IHSAA information card with a QR code. I don't know if this is going to be big enough on anybody's screen or if the definition will be good enough. But if you can get close enough, you can actually scan that QR code and it'll give you information on how to become a licensed referee in the state of Indiana. That's a great idea if it works. I don't know if it's going to work or not.
Well, we'll make sure we get that from you and we'll put that out for you.
Appreciate it. And the last picture on the very bottom, I didn't even know this picture existed. I found it about 10 years ago in a pile of pictures. It was taken in 1988 at our elementary wrestling tournament. And the two young men in that picture, the one refereeing and raising the hand is Andy Trevino. He was my first state champion about 3 or 4 years later. And the young man whose hand he's raising would have been about 8 years old at the time. He was my second state champion, Thurman Stone. So I've got these two guys in a picture before either one of them won the state championship in a referee and a state champion's pose. Before I begin rambling about the IHSAA state wrestling tournament and wrestling in the Calumet region again, I must loosely define what the term the Calumet region means in this presentation. I don't want to offend anybody or cut anybody out of it. So the definition that I'm using for the region or the Calumet region is the area of Northwest Indiana containing Lake, Porter, LaPorte, Newton, and Jasper counties. Many of you would probably disagree with my definition, but that's where I'm drawing my line. So I didn't think I could include LaPorte and Michigan City and LaPorte County and not pull New Prairie in as well, even though they're really on the outer fringe of the region, but they're included tonight. Okay. I have purposely ignored in any of my discussions of changes in the number of weight classes that were contested over the years, or of any actual changes in the weight class limits. The number of contested weights have changed from 7 to 10 to 11 to 10 again to 11 again to 12 to 13 and finally to the 14 that we have now. The weight classes have changed more often than the number of weights have been changed. The weight limit of the smallest wrestler has changed. It's gone from 100 to 90 to 95 to 103, back to 95 to 98 to 103 to 100 to 103 again, and finally where we're at right now to 106. To avoid all of this repetition, I've merely avoided the topic of weights altogether. We haven't talked about weight cutting. We haven't talked about, because that was going to make it a lot longer. So I've merely avoided the topic of weights altogether.
All right.
In 1981, the state wrestling finals were moved from Southport Fieldhouse to Market Square Arena in downtown Indianapolis. The IHSAA also implemented advancing the top 3 wrestlers from the semi-state to the state finals. This format change would require the use of formats and a 12-man bracket, where the number 2s would meet the number 3s on Friday night, and the winners would meet the number 1s on Saturday morning in the quarterfinals. The quarterfinal losers to the 2 eventual finalists would then have the chance to wrestle back against the semifinal losers from the other side of the bracket. This was the first time a wrestleback consolation was used by the IHSAA in the state wrestling finals since 1949. The 4 losers on Friday night and the 2 losers to the non-finalists in the quarterfinals were eliminated. The 2 wrestleback losers were also eliminated because they were still only awarding and scoring 4 places. The 4 extra qualifiers and the wrestlebacks created more scoring opportunities for non-placers. 4 wrestlers came out of the Friday night matchups to end up winning state championships the next night. This format would essentially remain in place for the state finals from 1981 to 1984. The Delta Eagles had placed 4th in the 1980 state finals with a relatively young team, so it was no surprise to anyone when they won their semi-state and qualified 6 wrestlers to MSA in 1981. Coach Don Patton's Eagles finished with 5 place winners, a 4th place, and 4 state champions, the most since Bloomington crowned 5 in 1950. Delta also set a new state final scoring record with 99 points, nearly doubling the 49.5 that runner-up Chesterton tallied. The Calumet region matched Delta with 4 champions. Jim Pop claimed Chesterton's first ever title. Gary Jackson won for LaPorte, and Ken Tiroli from Hammond Gavitt and David Lilovich from Michigan City Rogers won their 2nd titles. Pop knocked off former champion Scott Hutcherson of Warsaw in the quarterfinals. Unbeaten Chris Wildeman of Evansville Mater Dei came from behind to tie Richie Diggs from Decatur Central in regulation to send their finals match into overtime. Diggs seemed poised for a win. He was up 3-0 late in the 3rd period of overtime when Wildeman high-bridged back into a defensive pin to snatch victory from the hands of defeat. The first state finals at MSA drew a record crowd of 17,726 spectators over those 2 days, outdrawing the final crowd at Southport by nearly 4,000 fans. In 1982, Patton's Eagles would qualify 7 wrestlers for the state finals. In a much more balanced field, led by 3-time champion David Palmer, they placed 5 wrestlers in the top 4 to defend their title. The Eagles became the first back-to-back champions since Bloomington in the early 1970s. The region crowned 3 champions in John D. Hart from Chesterton, Vince Stigler of LaPorte, and Fernando Trevino from East Chicago, Washington. In 1983, Delta advanced 6 to the state finals and once again placed 5 amongst the top 4 in their weight. They earned a 4th, 2/3, a 2nd, and John Ginther won his first state title to earn their three-peat. The region did not crown a champion in 1983, but Roland Beckham's last Calumet team would prove to be his finest. The Warriors went unbeaten in duels. They went 8-0, and they won 8 tournaments on the season, including the Mishawaka Invitational and the Maryville Semi-State, crowning 4 champions. The Tribe finished behind Delta and Warren Central, finishing in a 3-way tie for 3rd with Indianapolis Cathedral and Lawrence North. Their 5 state finalists and 3 place winners, all 3rd placers, were program bests. Beckham, after a year at Gavitt, coached the Warriors from 1965 to 1983. His teams won 6 conference, 8 sectional, 3 regional, and 1 semi-state title. They finished 3rd in 1983. He coached 12 state qualifiers and 7 state place winners in a Hall of Fame career that included a 130-win, 39 loss, and 3 tie dual meet record. In 1984, the state finals format was modified to rectify the lost scoring opportunities for the semi-state champions that received byes on Friday night because of the 12-man bracket. These semi-state champions, not wrestling, could not score valuable team points. An inordinate number of these champions also lost in their Saturday morning bouts, giving credence to the thought that it was a disadvantage almost to receive that bye by being a semi-state champion. The IHSAA remedied both problems by advancing the top 4 placers from each semi-state and making the state finals a 16-man bracket. This gave every wrestler a Friday night bout, and it gave the semi-state champions the opportunity to score advancement and bonus points that didn't exist before. Delta sent 5 wrestlers to the state finals in '84, including 3 place winners from 1983. The Eagles, led by John Gether, winning his 2nd title, placed 4 with 3 champions to win their 4th title in a row. The Calumet region crowned 4 state champions. Scott Mundell, Maryville, Dave Yeager from Hobart became the Brickies' first champion, and Calumet crowned Tony Smith and Barry Hanley as the first state champions in our program's history. Calumet qualified a program-high 6 wrestlers to the state finals, but lost 3 on Friday night. Smith and Hanley won bookend titles at 98 and heavyweight in their 3rd trips to state. But Brian Buffington's Friday night victory would prove to be the difference for Coach Ken Stegall's Warriors' 2nd place finish. They edged Warren Central by a half point for the runner-up trophy. Tony Smith asked recently retired coach Roland Beckham if he would sit in his corner as he wrestled under the lights for his title. So that night, Coach Beckham got his first state champion as well.
That's awesome.
Hobart's Gary Burkhart, an Emerson grad and an Indiana State wrestler, led Hobart for 14 years, and he won 6 conference titles, 13 sectionals, 6 regionals, and 2 semi-states. His 24 Bricky State qualifiers placed 4th 4 times, 3rd 3 times, 2nd once, and he had 3 state champions. The 1985 state finals had to be postponed a week due to a snowstorm in southern Indiana. On Thursday night, just prior to the original date for the state finals, I took our 2 state qualifiers to see a newly released movie across the street from Calumet when there used to be a cinema here. It had a wrestling theme named Vision Quest. We all came out of the theater fired up and ready to conquer the world. We would receive word early the next morning that our plans would have to be delayed a week.
How agonizing.
It was. Kids were cutting weight and they had another week.
Yeah.
The tourney was also relocated to Newcastle's Chrysler Fieldhouse because the girls' basketball Final Four was already scheduled for Market Square Arena the next weekend. This move necessitated the state finals be run on one day, so wrestlebacks were eliminated. Delta qualified 7 for the state and placed 3 in the top 4. The 4th time was a charm for the Eagles' Craig Campbell as he finally reached the top of the podium after placing 3rd in 3 consecutive state finals. Oof. Campbell was also named recipient of the Mental Attitude Award. Coach Patton and Delta won their 5th consecutive state title, thus tying Bloomington High School and Bloomington High School South for the modern-day era post-1950 record up to that time. In 1986, the IHSAA tweaked the tournament format once again. The top 3 wrestlers from each regional would now advance to semi-state, thus increasing the size of the bracket from 8 to 12. The IHSAA also began awarding 5th and 6th place at the state finals. The quarterfinal losers to the finalists would now advance to the 5th and 6th place bout without a wrestleback match. People weren't very happy about that, but they were tickled about the 2 more medals.
Yeah.
Coach Mike Gable's first state championship with Evansville Day brought Delta's state title streak to an end at 5. Coach Don Patton's Eagles still managed to take home the runner-up trophy in his final season at the helm. Evansville Mater Dei's Wildcats placed a 5th, a 2nd, and 2 champions to Delta's 2/3, a 2nd, and 1 champion. The Calumet region crowned 4 champions in Jimmy Hines and Trent Cox from Hobart, Tom Majera from Maryville, and Tim Burby of Valparaiso. That runner-up trophy from Delta, I took a group of kids down to wrestle in a freestyle meet early one morning. We got up really early and drove to Muncie to wrestle at Delta. And I'll never forget, we walked in and they had this massive trophy case with 5 state championship trophies mounted on these big wood bases. But their second place trophy they got in '86, they had it shoved in behind them. It wasn't even displayed. It was just shoved in the back, and it had all kinds of dust bunnies and it was not a pretty thing. But after winning 5 in a row, that runner-up trophy wasn't something that they were wanting to put in the front of the display case.
Sure didn't fit well with the scheme, did it?
No, it didn't. In the 20-year coaching career at Lebanon and Delta, Don Patton amassed a dual mark of 167 wins, 36 losses, and 3 ties. His Eagles compiled 5 unbeaten seasons, a 62-match win streak, and they went 96-4 from 1980 to 1986.
Wow.
His teams won 10 Delaware County, 7 conference, 10 sectional, 8 regional, 7 semi-state, and 5 state championships. He also coached 52 state qualifiers, 33 state place winners, 13 state champions, and 2 Mental Attitude Award winners. He was named the Indiana High School Wrestling Coaches Association Coach of the Year 5 times. Today, that award is named in his honor.
As it should.
In 1987, Coach Denny Hayes and his Belmont Braves became only the 4th team in history to win a state championship without crowning an individual champion. They parlayed 6 place winners, including 3 runners-up, 2 fourths, and a 6th to outdistance the defending champion Evansville Mater Dei Wildcats. Mike Frost from Lake Central was the Calumet region's lone state champion and his school's first ever. Gibson Southern's Terry Kissel won the Mental Attitude Award. He won the Seymour Semi-State, and he entered the state finals unbeaten. He lost to the eventual champion in the quarterfinals, which pulled him back in for the 5th place bout. His 8-4 win earned him the 5th place medal. Kissel did all of this without a right leg. He lost his leg in a farming accident at age 3. It's very similar to the story that's being promoted right now. The young man from Arizona State,
Anthony Robles.
What's the name of the movie? Unbeaten or Unbroken? Unbeaten.
Unbroken, I think it's Unbeaten. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but I've heard guys say it's a really good movie, so get out and see it.
It is.
I remember watching it. I saw something on Flow a few months ago talking to the guy who portrayed the Iowa wrestler that he beat in the finals, and this guy was actually an Ohio State wrestler. So they've used real wrestling people to make this movie.
Oh, that's the best way to do it. How they do in war situations and war movies too. You might as well make it look real.
In 1988, Belmont and Cathedral were embroiled in a very tight team race. Both teams advanced 2 wrestlers to the finals. Belmont held a 2-point lead before the finals, and Cathedral had an unbeaten Lance Ellis going for his 3rd title. Ellis's 12-4 major decision put the Irish up by 3. Paul Baker's win regained the lead by 1 for Belmont, and for only the 2nd time ever, 2 wrestlers from the top 2 teams were pitted against one another with the team title still up for grabs. Wow. Belmont's Paul Gunsett beat Cathedral Sean McGinley 8-5 to clinch the 70.5 to 65.5 Braves repeat victory. Chesterton's Keith Davison was the lone champion from the Calumet region. Coach Denny Hayes, a Mishawaka grad, compiled 123 and 17 dual mark in his 9 years as Belmont's head coach. And he won 9 conference titles, 9 sectionals, 6 regionals, 2 semi-states, and 2 state championships. Hayes coached 37 state qualifiers, 18 place winners, and 3 state champions in his Hall of Fame career. The 1989 season set a Calumet region high water mark at the state finals. The 219 area code put 9 wrestlers into the finals, crowned 6 state champions, and claimed the first title for a region team since Hammond in 1963. The region champs were DeJuan Williams from Gary Wirt, Mark Rosenbaum from Maryville, Omar Martin from Hammond High, Rob Pavletic from Hobart, Keith Davison from Chesterton won his 2nd title, and George Porter from Gary Roosevelt earned his school's first wrestling state championship. Bob Treziak's Chesterton Trojans qualified 5 to the state finals and placed third, second, and first. The Trojans revealed to me after their win what the block-lettered BEANS scrawled on their gray T-shirts meant in black Sharpie the next week. I'm sorry. They revealed to me that they couldn't tell. Every time I saw them with these shirts, I asked them what it meant. And they said, we can't tell you until the state finals is over. Well, it stood for beat everybody's ass next Saturday. And I thought it was quite poignant. They were not fancy. They were not braggadocio. And it was a message these kids had sent to one another. And I think that team, I don't think that team won the Duneland Conference. I don't think they won a sectional or a regional, but they won the semi-state and the state championship that year. Because as they got closer to the end of the funnel, it got a little easier for a small group to win, but they were outstanding. They did beans that Saturday, I should say.
Yeah.
in Coach Treziak's 13 seasons at the helm, he led the Trojans to 3 DAC titles, 5 sectionals, 3 regionals, 2 semi-states, 6 top 10 state finishes, including a 1981 runner-up finish and the 1989 state championship. His dual record of 104 wins, 40 losses, and 2 ties included 37 tournament titles, 32 state qualifiers, 21 top 6 place winners, and 4 state champions. An integral contribution to Chesterton wrestling was made by the Duneland Wrestling Club. As a parent, coach, volunteer extraordinaire, Ed Dewberry worked tirelessly for the DWC, hustling kids around gyms all over the place to help make Chesterton wrestling the top-notch program that it became. He could be seen recording stats and making notes on his trusty clipboard throughout the day at tournaments all over the Midwest. During the decade of the 1980s, David Palmer, who won a state championship in 1980 for Muncie South before transferring to Delta, became a 4-time finalist and a 3-time state champ in 1982. And Lance Ellis from Indianapolis Cathedral became the first 4-time state champion in 1989 in 37 years. In his final bout under lights, Ellis was taken down by Scott Wilson from Rushville early in the first period. The crowd at Market Square Arena was hushed, but he quickly escaped and launched Wilson with a lateral drop that ended in a headlock for the fall. Ellis culminated his perfect prep career with a backflip with both arms extended with 4 raised fingers on each hand. He went 177-0 to become the first unbeaten 4-time state champion in Indiana High School Athletic Association history. The 1990s. The 1990s began with Muncie South claiming the 1990 title. Coach John Smith, a 2-time state champion for Franklin Central in the late 1960s, led the Rebels to the crown with 2 champions, becoming just the 5th former Indiana state champion to coach a state championship team. The Calumet region failed to crown a champion in 90. In 91, Mishawaka advanced 4 of their 6 state qualifiers to the second day and had 3 make the semifinals. The Cavemen clinched the team title when all 3 qualified for the finals. Coach Al Smith's boys finished 5th, 2nd, and 1st for his and the program's first state title. Andy Trevino of Calumet was the region's lone state champion and my first as a coach for the Warriors. Al Smith's dual record was 420 wins, 80 losses, and 5 ties during a 34-year career, including numerous Northern Indiana Conference crowns, 13 sectional titles, 16 regional trophies, 3 semi-state titles, and the 1991 state championship. He also coached 69 state qualifiers, 41 state place winners, and 7 state champions.
Wow.
In 1978, Northern Indiana Conference, in 1978, the Northern Indiana Conference, the NIC, canceled its league tournament in favor of determining its champion via dual meet results. Coach Smith asked his AD to organize an 8-team invitational for the Cavemen to host during the late December holiday break. The Mishawaka Invitational was born. The AD did exactly as Al had requested. He invited 8 teams to the tournament. forgetting to include the host school in the field. The inaugural invitational, won by the Cavemen, was actually a 9-team tournament made up of mostly NIC and Michiana area wrestling teams and a rat tail round. It quickly grew to 12 teams, then 16, then 20, 24, and finally to its current configuration of 32 teams. It started out as a one-day affair hosted in the Cave, Indiana's second oldest active high school gym, dating back to 1924. Today, it's run over 2 days on 9 mats in 2 different gyms. It has evolved into the toughest tournament in the state, playing host to several top-ranked teams and individuals. Coaches use it as a mid-season measuring stick for their teams and individuals in preparation for the upcoming state tournament series. In 1999, upon Coach Smith's retirement from coaching, Mishawaka High School renamed the Invitational the Al Smith Wrestling Invitational, a richly deserved honor bestowed upon one of Indiana's greatest wrestling coaches of all time. After finishing as state runners-up in 1989 and 1991, Lawrence North, under the direction of Coach Frank Svarchkoff Jr., put themselves in title contention by advancing 4 wrestlers to the 1992 state finals. Their qualifiers finished 4th, 3rd, 1st, and 1st at the Newcastle semi-state. The Wildcats got the most bang for their buck by pushing all 4 of these wrestlers into the finals the following week, finishing a perfect 16-0 and crowning 4 state champions. 22 schools were represented in the finals. Coach Svarchkoff made IHSAA history as well by joining his father, Frank Sr., as the only father and son pair to each lead their team to a state wrestling championship. The IHSAA tweaked the tournament format once again by awarding 7th and 8th place at the state finals. The quarterfinal losers to the finalists would still advance to the 5th and 6th place bout, but now the quarterfinal losers to the semifinal losers would compete for 7th and 8th without the luxury of a wrestleback match. Maryville's Dennis Watson and Hanover Central's Roger Blanton won championships from the Calumet region. Blanton was the Wildcats' first state champ. Lawrence North would repeat in 1993, and Svarchkoff would join his father again, now as a 2-time state championship coach. And the region would crown Lee Marks from Hammond and David Maldonado from East Chicago Central as state champions. Maldonado would join a long list of state champions from East Chicago, but he would be the first for the consolidated East Chicago Central Cardinals. David embarked on a remarkable coaching career after wrestling for Bobby Douglas at Iowa State, when he returned to the region for a stop at Bishop Knoll. In 2 years, he led Bishop Knoll to 2 sectional titles, and he coached the state finalists. In his first 24 years, his teams from Bishop Knoll and Maryville have claimed 3 DAC titles, 21 sectionals, 12 regionals, 4 semi-states, and they earned 3 trips to the IHSAA team state finals. They advanced to the semifinals in 2008. His 93 Pirate state qualifiers have placed 8th 4 times, 7th 8 times, 6th 7 times, 5th 9 times, 4th 11 times, 3rd 2 times, 2nd 11 times, and he's crowned 9 state champions.
Wow.
And he's still got a few years to go.
And that's what I keep telling everybody. He's such a high IQ wrestler and coach as well. You could see him progressing through the moves as he's coaching them, as if he already knows his wrestlers that good, and not to mention his roommates with Cale Sanderson. That's pretty cool. And
he's one of the classiest guys you're ever going to meet in our sport.
And all of his family is. They're great.
He's a very high integrity guy. He's a very hardworking guy. From what I've heard, he might be a better teacher than he is a coach. He teaches Spanish at Maryville High School. His wife is a guidance counselor over there. Great family. Get tired of running into Maldonados, but they're classy kids, and they've been great stewards for the sport of wrestling.
Yeah, they have been. I know I'm probably wrong on it, but I feel like they're the most successful family, and one of them, if not one of them, in this area, to the point where their family still at this point does so much that you could put them on the Mount Rushmore of the 2000s, because even the 90s, because of what David has done, started with as himself, and the rest of his family, how much they've given back to the sport in this area.
His dads and uncles wrestled for East Chicago, Washington. He and his brothers and cousins, wrestled for East Chicago Central. There are Maldonados in the wrestling room at Bishop Knoll, at Maryville, at Hobart, at not Crown Point, but they're all over the place.
They're everywhere. They're great. That's good. That's a good thing.
His uncle Frank won a regional in 1980, my senior year. So yeah, the Maldonado family is absolutely Calumet region wrestling royalty in my eyes.
I agree 1000%.
Now I've got to find my place. In 1994, under the leadership of Brent B.J. Farote, Belmont claimed the program's third overall title. The Braves, led by three-time finalist and two-time state champ Tim Myers, would help Farote become only the sixth former state champion to also win a state team title as a head coach. Matt Graham of LaPorte was the lone state champion from the Calumet region. In 1995, the IHSAA reshuffled the weights to include a 215 light heavyweight in upper weight classes. Evansville Mater Dei and Coach Mike Gable claimed the Wildcats' second state title and began an unprecedented streak that would span most of the next decade. Belmont, Decatur Central, and Newcastle were deadlocked in a tie for the runner-up trophy. The Calumet region would crown two state champions in James Torres of Lake Central and Greg Larson of Hanover Central. In 1996, the IHSAA, after exhaustive research and extensive discussions with the Indiana High School Wrestling Coaching Association, changed the state championship format to a single-class team dual state tournament. The individual state tournament would remain unchanged, but tournament team scoring would only be used at the sectional level to determine the 64-team field. The 64 sectional team champions would then compete in 16 single-elimination, four-team dual meet regionals on the Wednesday after sectionals. The 16 regional champions would then compete in 8 semi-state duels around the state on the Wednesday after regionals. The 8-team state finalists would then compete on the Saturday after the individual state finals. The first state dual finals were held at Southport High School, with each subsequent tourney being held at Center Grove High School in Greenwood. The IHSAA also added a 14th weight class in 1996 to go along with their new format. Leroy Vega of Portage and Bill Maldonado of East Chicago Central claimed state titles for the region. Evansville Mater Dei would repeat as state champions, with a first and second place finisher in the traditional state final, and by outlasting Newcastle in the team finals 33-21. Portage fell in the semifinals to Newcastle 48-16. Coach Rex Peckinpah and Newcastle were at the apex of their team's success during the 95 and 96 state tournaments. Peck coached from 1982 to 2019, and he won the following titles: 18 North Central Conference, 34 sectional, 14 regional, 6 semi-state, and 2 state runner-up trophies. He coached 89 state qualifiers, 43 state place winners, 6 finalists, and 1 state champion. In his Hall of Fame career, he amassed a dual mark of 1,001 wins, 300 losses, and 3 ties for a 769 winning percentage. The 1,001 victories is still a National Federation High School national record.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, has there ever been anyone close to that?
Well, there's some ambiguous guys that have claimed to win the thing, but they were coaching 2 or 3 teams at the same time, or maybe they had like 4 varsity teams going out every Saturday, and the National Federation has not recognized that as the national record.
When life keeps you busy and you can't get to the store, shop online with Strachan Van Til To Go. Our to-go service is easy to use. Register using your rewards account information, fill your virtual cart, and choose delivery or pickup. Once your order is in, our own Strachan Van Til team preps your order with care. With our to-go service, you can earn reward points and save time and money with our online coupons and weekly ad prices. Life made simple, shopping made easy. For more information or to sign up, visit shop.strachanvantil.com.
Hi, I'm Crowd Company's Lantern Man. For years, I've helped your family and friends save on their car insurance. And now I've returned to rescue you from high prices. Whether you have a perfect driving record or a not-so-perfect record. Follow me to the Crowd Agency for immediate and affordable coverage. I'm your insurance superhero. Crowd Company's insurance professionals. Highland, Merrillville, and Michigan City.
Due after high school? Consider a career with Boilermakers Local 374. As a Boilermaker apprentice, you'll earn while you learn. We offer excellent wages and benefits, and as part of our no-cost hands-on apprenticeship program, you'll learn from the best in state-of-the-art training centers and on the job. Become a union Boilermaker and get on your way to a great career. Find out more, visit www.local374.org or call 219-845-1000.
With electrical services from Economy Electric Heating and Cooling, you can radiate the perfect amount of light and energy into your home. From rewiring and code upgrades to ceiling fans, lighting, security, and more, Economy Electric Heating and Cooling's trained electricians will make sure you can enjoy your home on full power all the time. For a free estimate on electrical work, call Economy Electric Heating and Cooling at 219-923-4441, and you can visit them on the web at 4ajobdoneright.com. That's the number 4ajobdoneright.com.
The IHSWCA continued to keep score of the individual state finals and presented a coach's trophy to the unofficial state champions at their Hall of Fame banquet on the Sunday after the individual finals. In keeping with the IHSAA's ruling tradition of recognizing only one official state championship team, excluding, of course, the classes used for football since 1973, and the addition of classes for all team sports in 1997 and 98. I have not listed any of these unofficial state champions in my history until 2013, when the IHSWCA was granted permission to sponsor a classed team state dual tournament by the IHSAA. In 1997, the Evansville Mater Dei Wildcats would complete the three-peat with one finalist in the traditional state final and by dispatching Penn 32-18 in the team final. Portage represented Northwest Indiana and lost in the semifinals to Penn 41-23. The Calumet region crowned 4 state champions in Vince Sessa of Lake Central and Jake Warner of Portage, with Leroy Vega and Bill Maldonado winning their second titles for Portage and East Chicago Central. In 1997, the NCAA changed its weight management rules after 3 college wrestlers died from dangerous weight cutting practices. These practices included severely restricting food and liquid, wearing vapor impermeable suits while working out, and using heated rooms and or saunas to induce sweating. These weight cutting practices led to dehydration, malnutrition, and eventually multi-organ failure. They also limited performance and led to harmful effects on the body, including death in 3 instances. Weight classifications were intended to create a safer, more even playing field by matching competitors who were close in weight. However, weight cycling was a common practice where wrestlers would cut weight before a match and regain it immediately after the weigh-in. This practice probably still continues to this day, but in an effort to try to minimize some of that, they came down hard. They changed the college weight classes. They instituted all kinds of body fat regulation, and it's seeped down to the high school levels as well. New weight management rules were implemented by the National Federation of High Schools following the lead of the dramatic changes mandated by the NCAA. That included: 1, wrestlers could not lose weight below a minimum body fat percentage of 7% for boys or 12% for girls. Wrestlers underwent hydration testing before a body fat assessment was made. Wrestlers whose body fat assessment fell below the minimum must have a physician's release in order to participate. And coaches and athletes would be educated on nutrition and weight management. The IHSAA was one of the first state high school associations to implement these changes. In fact, they were at the forefront of the changes, implementing a mandatory weight management program several years before the National Federation of High School mandate took effect in 2007. In 1998, Mater Dei would claim their fourth consecutive state title with 3 finalists and champion in the traditional state meet by defeating Portage 48-10 in the team final. The Calumet region crowned 2 state champions in Jason Tabor of Portage and Dan Spencer of Maryville. In 1999, Evansville Mater Dei would again earn the state title without an individual finalist in the traditional meet, but not without a scare in the team semifinals against Hobart. After losing huge upset pins at 145 and 152, Evansville Mater Dei found themselves down 30-12 with only 5 bouts left. The Wildcats reeled off 3 straight decisions to close the gap to 30-21 with 2 matches remaining. Mater Dei won at 2:15 by fall to make it 30-27 before their undersized 275-pounder pinned his much larger foe, securing victory 33-30. The Wildcats beat Belmont 35-21 in an anticlimactic final for their 5th consecutive crown. In Market Square Arena's final year of hosting the state finals, the Calumet region crowned 4 individual state champions. In Alex Ramos of Hobart, Thurman Stone of Calumet, Fred Joseph of Portage, and Marcus Shantube of Lowell. The decade of the 90s would produce 2 3-time state champions in Bloomington North's Patrick Cassidy and Beech Grove's Stephen Bradley. Steve Balish and his buddy Don Rogers led Hobart Wrestling for 30 years. Together, they coached the Bricky Matmen to 6 conference, 13 sectional, 3 regional, and 1 semi-state championship, as well as a team state semifinal berth that I just talked about. Their 61 Bricky state qualifiers placed 8th 6 times, 7th once, 6th twice, 5th 6 times, 4th 2 times, 3rd 6 times, 2nd 4 times, and they crowned 8 state champions. Coach Balish coached 3 sports at Hobart for 50 seasons and was posthumously honored recently when the Hobart Wrestling Room was renamed in his honor. His likeness, Johann the Bricky, stands guard outside that room.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I think it was like 53 years or more even of 3 different sports.
Yep.
I was trying to contact ESPN at the time to see if they could do a little bit on that because couldn't have been anybody in the nation that had that amount of accumulated time in at that time. You know, that's 150 years of coaching in one man.
And he never wrestled.
Yes, he was a basketball player for Indiana State, I think, wasn't he?
Well, he didn't play basketball in college, but he played high school basketball at Hobart. He was a weight man in track, and he was an outstanding football player. And he came back and coached. Don Howell hired him out of Indiana State, and he was a better human being than he was a coach. Never going to find a better human being and a tougher dude. The guy. I hope I don't gross anybody out. The guy taught wood shop.
I know.
Taught industrial arts. And he said whenever he turned the machines off at the end of the day, he was always done. He never turned them back on regardless. Well, one day a kid came up, he needed another cut on a piece of wood to get his project done. So Steve went over and turned it on and ran it for him. And I don't remember the exact thing that happened, but the guide slipped and he cut off a couple of fingers. And
these two, his pinky.
The guy's so tough, I would have died right there. I would have bled to death. I would have been screaming bloody murder. Steve Balish picked up his fingers, wrapped his hand in a towel, and walked down to the nurse. And he used to always tell jokes that after he lost those 2 fingers, he was so used to putting coins in his hand when he would pay at a drive-thru or to do something with money. But by not having those 2 fingers, he couldn't hold coins. And every time he'd put money in his hand, it would fall out. He was a good dude. I stood in line for 3 hours to pay my respects at his funeral a few years ago. And there was such a huge mass of humanity there. A finer human being never did this job that we do. He was a great man.
I got an opportunity. There's still a photo that I have of Steve and my daughter, and they're on the wrestling mat at Hobart, and the lights are all off, and just the center lights on, and it's just them from the back, and it's just thinking of that picture, you know, how much he's meant to so many different generations, and like you were saying, outside of wrestling.
He and Donnie were the father figures to 30 plus years of Bricky athletes. Donnie never had a child of his own, but he raised thousands of other people's children.
Yeah, and he has brother Bob.
Yep. Good folks.
Yes.
From the early 1990s through the mid 2000s, the Portage Indians were the dominant program in the Calumet region. Larry Tharp succeeded Bruce Sheriff in 1992 and brought Ed Pendosky on board in 1994 after he graduated from Purdue. Coach Tharp went 111-7 for a .940 percentage in dual meets from 1992 to 98, winning the following: 6 DAC, 6 sectional, 6 regional, 4 semi-states, 1 the traditional way, and 3 dual meet semi-states, 3 state qualifying teams, 2 state semifinalist teams, and the 1998 state runner-up team. Larry coached 31 state qualifiers, 18 place winners, 7 finalists, and 4 state champions. Pendosky went 327-27 for a .924 winning percentage from 1998 to 2005, winning the following titles: 7 DAC crowns, 7 sectionals, 6 regionals, 5 semi-states, 5 state qualifying teams, 3 state semifinalist teams, the 2001 state runner-up team, and the 2005 Indiana High School Wrestling Coaches Association Coaches Trophy. Ed coached 42 state qualifiers, 25 place winners, 9 finalists, and 4 state champions. Ed has added, since leaving Portage, 9 sectionals, 8 regionals, 6 IHSWCA Class State dual teams, 20 state qualifiers, 12 state place winners, and 1 finalist to go along with 157 and 63 dual mark at Carmel since 2012. The 2000s. The turn of the millennium brought about the first permanent change of venue for the state wrestling finals in nearly 20 years. The finals would move into the NBA Pacers' new 18,500 seat home at Conseco Fieldhouse, setting a new 2-day record with 37,505 attending the 4 sessions of wrestling. Evansville Mater Dei and Coach Mike Gable would start off the 2000s just like they ended the 1990s by claiming their 6th consecutive state wrestling championship, once again without an individual finalist in the traditional meet. The Wildcats beat a determined Mishawaka squad 45-12 in the finals after the Cavemen squeaked past Belmont and Franklin in the preliminary rounds, both on tiebreaker criteria. Portage fell to Mater Dei 33-17 in the semis. The Wildcats, under coaches, the Wildcats' 6th straight title established a new IHSAA record for wrestling coaches and tied the Bloomington teams of the late 1940s and 50 under coaches Harold Mumby and Clifford Myers. The Calumet area crowned 5 individual state champions in Bobby Howard of Lowell, Alex Ramos of Hobart, Eric Keith and Fred Joseph of Portage, and Marcus Shantube of Lowell. Mark Line led Lowell for a decade, where the Red Devils won 1 conference, 4 sectionals, 1 regional, 1 semi-state, and the IHSWCA's Coaches Cup. His 16 state qualifiers placed 8th once, 6th once, 5th once, and 1st 3 times. He served shorter stints coaching and assisting at Boone Grove, Kankakee Valley, Knox, North Newton, Valpo, and Ancilla College. The Mater Dei Wildcats continued their dominance, in 2001, sending 4 wrestlers to the finals of the traditional meet and claiming 3 state champions. They would outdistance Portage 40-16 in the team finals for a record-setting 7th consecutive title. The Calumet region claimed 3 titleists in Alex Sursis, who became Griffith's first state champion, and Lake Central teammates Michael Escobedo and Michael Ingberg Barkley. In 2002, with the scheduling cooperation of several athletic conferences, independents, as well as coaches and ADs, a Lake County wrestling championship was established. No fewer than 19 of the 25 wrestling schools in Lake County participated in the inaugural event, with a few holdouts skeptical that it could be pulled off. Hosted at Calumet the first year, the 2-day affair saw Griffith claim the team championship with 5 finalists and 3 champions. Several Calumet region wrestling legends participated by coming back and presenting awards to the place winners in the different weight classes. Several of the men that we've talked about already.
Yes.
Calumet's Brandon Davis earned the Outstanding Wrestler Award when he upset the number 2 ranked wrestler in the state in the finals. Over the years, the county has been hosted by Calumet, Highland, Griffith, Lake Station, Hammond Clark, and in recent years, it has found a semi-permanent home at Hanover Central. This winter marked the 23rd edition of the Lake County Championship. It was canceled in 21 due to COVID. The 2002 state team finals saw Evansville Mater Dei earn a record 8th straight title, 49-12 over Perry Meridian. Portage lost to Perry 40-15 in the opening round. The Wildcats pushed 4 men into the finals, crowning a lone champion in the traditional meet. The region crowned 5 state champions in Hector Mendez of East Chicago Central, Jason Cook of Valparaiso, Michael Escobedo of Lake Central, along with Griffith's Angel Escobedo and Alex Surtis. The 2 Escobedo cousins were joined in the finals by another pair of cousins in Griffith's Jose Escobedo and Bishop Knowles' Dan Bedoy. This is believed to be the first and only time that 4 cousins all competed under the lights for an Indiana state title on the same evening. John Cook retired from the helm of Valparaiso after coaching his son Jason to a state championship in 2002. In his 25 years with the Vikings, his teams won a DAC title, 5 sectionals. His 33 Viking state qualifiers placed 8th twice, 5th once, 4th once, 3rd 3 times, 2nd 7 times, and he crowned 2 state champions. Prior to the 2002-2003 season, the IHSAA implemented its most prominent realignment and restructuring of the tournament since 1976, some 27 years. The 64 sectionals were consolidated into 32 larger tournaments of between 7 and 13 teams, with several changes designed to improve competition at the first level of the tournament. Some of these modifications were full wrestlebacks from the quarterfinal round of the sectional, advancing the top 4 place winners to the regional, and advancing the top 2 teams to the team regional. In 2003, Evansville Mater Dei extended their record streak of consecutive championships to 9 in a row, beating Griffith 42-23 in the finals. The victory moved Coach Mike Gable into a tie with Bloomington's Harold Mumby for Indiana's all-time record at 10 state championships apiece. The Wildcats pushed 5 into the finals of the traditional meet, crowning 4 state champions, combined with Griffith's 3 titleists. The top 2 teams accounted for half of all the state champions. Northwest Indiana claimed 5 state champs in Fernando Martinez of Highland, Angel Escobedo, Andre Hernandez, and Alex Surtis of Griffith. And Michigan City's Brent Surface claimed the Wolves' first title since Elston and Rogers consolidated. Surtis finished his junior season at 62-0 and 178-0 for his career, both new IHSAA wrestling records with a season to go. The 2004 season saw Evansville Mater Dei's 9-year run of state championships come to an end. The Wildcats fell to Portage 29-23 in the quarterfinals. Then Lawrence North avenged their only loss of the season to the Indians 23-21 in the semis. before besting Perry Meridian 47-12 in the finals. The 9 consecutive titles by Evansville Mater Dei was the second longest streak in any sport in IHSAA history at the time. Lawrence North was the first team to win a team dual title other than Mater Dei since the tourney began in '96. It was Coach Brett Krauser's first state title. The Calumet region crowned 5 state champions in Darren Elkins of Portage, who would later earn his living as a UFC featherweight nicknamed The Damage, and the Griffith Quartet of Jose Escobedo, Angel Escobedo, Andre Hernandez, and Alex Surtsis. Alex and Evansville Mater Dei's Blake Maurer became Indiana's 5th and 6th 4-time state championships all time, and the first duo to accomplish the feat in the same season. Alex became only the 2nd unbeaten 4-time champion in Indiana history, joining Lance Ellis of Cathedral and setting both state and national records for career victories at 236-0. Surtsis also became the first to win 4 titles in 4 different weight classes. Lawrence North repeated in 2005 with a 48-17 finals victory over Avon after beating Portage 34-21 in the quarterfinals. The region crowned 3 state champions: Eric Galka of Hobart, Angel Escobedo of Griffith, and Wesley English of Maryville. Escobedo became Indiana's 7th 4-time state champion, and Griffith emerged as the first school with multiple 4-timers, joining Surtsis. Mike Gable and his Wildcats returned Evansville Mater Dei to the winner's circle in 2006. Their 39-15 finals victory over Belmont earned Gable his 11th team state championship, moving him past Mumby as the all-time leader in Indiana wrestling. Maryville fell to Belmont 28-25 in the quarterfinals. The 119-pound weight class had 3 defending champions in the bracket. However, all 3 lost before the semifinals. Mishawaka crowned 3 state champions, including Pat Day, who broke a 74-year-old record by pinning his semifinal opponent in just 11 seconds, eclipsing the old record of 15 seconds. The region crowned 5 state champions in Javier Salas and Dexter Larimore of Maryville, Andrew Howe of Hanover Central, Chad Biddle of Portage, and Eric McGill of Munster, who became the Mustangs' first state wrestling champion. The 2007 state finals marked the end of one of the most phenomenal coaching careers in Indiana wrestling history. Evansville Mater Dei's Mike Gable led the Wildcats for 29 years, from 1979 through 2007, compiled a dual record of 533 wins, 14 losses, and 2 ties, for a 97.3 winning percentage.
What?
During his tenure, the Wildcats won 29 Evansville City titles, 27 Southern Indiana Athletic Conference titles, with 198 individual SIAC champions, 29 sectionals with 262 individual champions, 29 regionals with 160 champions, 22 semi-states with 72 individual champions, and 12 state championships with numerous qualifiers and place winners to go along with 22 individual state champions. Evansville Mater Dei also strung together a 135-match winning streak on his watch between 1991 and 1998. Mike was also named Indiana High School Wrestling Coaches Association State Coach of the Year 8 times, National Wrestling Coaches Association National Coach of the Year in 1999 and 2003, and his final team beat Mishawaka 31-18 for the state championship. Maryville fell to Mishawaka 36-27 in the quarterfinals. Mike Gable's right-hand man, his lead assistant, Coach Randy Helfrich, also retired from coaching after 27 seasons at the helm of the Wildcats reserve team. His career record in that capacity set a national record at 450 wins against 0 losses. Oh, by the way,
He's never lost a dual meet.
never lost a
Like
JV
a varsity 2.
in 27 years. Oh, by the way, Coach Gable also led the Wildcat football team to 2A state championships on the gridiron in 2000 and 2022. The Calumet region claimed 4 state championships in Eric Galka of Hobart, Eric McGill of Munster, Jamal Lawrence of Maryville, and Andrew Howe of Hanover Central. In 2008, Mishawaka, under the tutelage of Coach Derek Snyder, won their first team state dual title by avenging their 2007 finals loss to Evansville Mater Dei 28-22. The Cavemen bested Maryville 30-22 in the semis. Mishawaka claimed 2 state champions in the traditional finals. The Calumet region crowned 4 state champions in Tom Churchard of Valpo, Sean McMurray of Portage, Brennan Cosgrove of Hobart, and Andrew Howe of Hanover Central. Robert Emmerich retired at the end of 2008 after 28 seasons at Lake Central. His teams won a Lake Suburban Conference crown, 15 sectionals, 2 regionals, and his 47 Indian state qualifiers placed 7th once, 6th once, 5th twice, 4th twice, 3rd 6 times, 2nd 7 times, and he crowned 6 state champions. In 2009, the Crown Point Bulldogs won their first team state championship, outlasting Perry Meridian 33-25 to bring the title back to the Calumet region for the first time since 1989. Coach Scott Vlink, over his 36-year tenure, amassed a dual record of 460 wins against 139 losses and 2 ties. His Bulldogs earned 15 conference titles, 23 sectional crowns, 13 regional trophies, 5 semi-states, a state runner-up, and a state championship. Flink coached 102 state qualifiers and 50 place winners, including 5 runners-up before his 2009 team finally crossed the Rubicon with 3 individual state champions. The Bulldogs' first state champions in 34 years since 1975. The Calumet region claimed 5 state champions in Anthony Hawkins, Jason Surtsis, and Marcus Shrewsbury of Crown Point, Francisco Frankie Porras of Hobart, and Sean McMurray of Portage. In 2008-9, the IHSAA began advancing 4 from the regional to the semi-state to eliminate the first-round byes at semi-state. The decade of the 2000s produced 4 3-time state champs in Jake O'Brien of Franklin Central, Reese Humphrey of Lawrence North, Josh Harper of Mishawaka, and Andrew Howe of Hanover Central. 3 4-time state champs were also crowned in Blake Maurer of Mater Dei and Alex Surtsis and Angel Escobedo of Griffith. The 2010s began with Mishawaka and Derek Snyder claiming their 2nd title in 3 years. In 2010, the Cavemen beat Yorktown 37-17 in the finals after dispatching Crown Point in the quarterfinals 45-19. The Calumet region claimed 6 state championships in the traditional meet, and Kyle Earsman of Lake Central, Jason Surtsis of Crown Point, Frankie Porras of Hobart, Eric Roach of Crown Point, Sean McMurray of Portage, and Nathan Cleveland of Lowell. Sarah Hildebrandt, a junior from Penn, became the first female semi-state qualifier in IHSAA history. In 2011, Perry Meridian and Jim Tante won their first state championship, outdistancing Lawrence North 44-21. Crown Point fell 30-25 to Evansville Mater Dei in the quarterfinals. Castle High School's twins, Doug and Chad Welch, became the 3rd set of twins all time to win state titles in the same season. 3 region wrestlers repeated as state champions in Kyle Earsman of Lake Central, along with Jason Surtsis and Eric Roach of Crown Point. Kayla Miracle of Culver Military Academy and Sarah Hildebrandt of Penn became the 2nd and 3rd female semi-state qualifiers. The team dual state championship began in 1996 when the IHSAA initiated the dual tourney. They made it the official team championship, and they stopped scoring the individual tourney after the sectional round. The sectional champions and later the runner-up teams, after consolidation, were used to fill the brackets of the team tourney. Several coaches, however, were not in favor of dual format. Especially if they were located somewhere near very traditional wrestling powers. They de-emphasized the team tourney after the sectional was held. Over time, several coaches started sending their JV teams to wrestle in duels against local powers at the regional or semi-state level in an effort to protect their individuals for the traditional tournament. The IHSWCA powers continued to unofficially score the individual state finals and award the coaches trophy at the Hall of Fame banquet. After 16 years hosting a team state championship and dealing with the problems that diminished the integrity of the tournament, the IHSAA announced that 2012 would be the final team dual championship. The traditional state finals would once again become the official state championship for IHSAA. Each level would once again be scored as it was prior to the establishment of the dual meet championship. The IHSAA, in conjunction with the IHSWCA, would now allow for the establishment of a classed team state championship to be held over the holiday break, as long as the IHSWCA organized, promoted, sponsored, and financed it. The last official team dual state championship, sponsored by the IHSAA, was held in 2012. The Falcons of Perry Meridian pulled off a repeat by defending their title and avenging their 2009 title loss to Crown Point 43-14. 5 Calumet Region state champions were crowned in Stefan Micic and Paul Petrov of Hanover Central, Kyle Ayersman of Lake Central, and Jason Sertzis and Tyler Krall of Crown Point. Jason Sertzis became Indiana's 8th four-time state champion, joining his brother Alex as the first sibling four-time champions. Kayla Miracle, Culver Military Academy's 106-pounder, became the first female state qualifier in Indiana history, completing her sophomore season at 42-6. In 2012, the IHSAA held wrestlebacks at the semi-state for the quarterfinal losers to determine a true 5th place winner as the alternate to the state finals. It was short-lived, though, as they ended the practice after the 2013 state finals. In 2013, the IHSAA returned to recognizing the winner of the traditional state finals as the official state championship team. The Perry Meridian Falcons under Jim Tante not only won this rebirth of the state finals tournament, lost my place, hang on. They claimed their 3rd consecutive state championship and established a new tournament scoring record of 102.5 points. The old record set by Delta in 1981 had been 99. The Falcons claimed 3 titles from their 4 finalists. The Calumet region crowned 3 champions in Stefan Micic of Hanover Central, Bobby Stevenson of Maryville, and Jeelan Robinson of Lake Central. The inaugural Indiana High School Wrestling Coaches Association team duels were held at Westfield High School with 3 classes of 8 teams competing on 12 mats. The champions were Adams Central in 1A, Yorktown in 2A, and Perry Meridian in 3A. In 2014, Indianapolis Cathedral and Coach Sean McGinley won their first state title on the strength of 7 Irish state qualifiers, 3 finalists, and 1 state champion. The Calumet region crowned 3 champions in Jeremiah Reitz of Griffith, Stefan Micic of Hanover Central, and Jeelan Robinson of Lake Central. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Churubusco in 1A, Yorktown in 2A, and Franklin Community in 3A. I need to pause and get a drink of water, if you're okay with that.
I'm all right.
I told you it was long.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, I appreciate it. There's a lot of information here. I'm reliving the majority of the things that you're saying, especially in the 90s, because that's when I was in school, and listening to all these names as we're progressing into the 2000s. It's nostalgic.
This was the harder half, because I know a lot of these guys. I know these coaches. I know these kids. I know these programs. The old timers, I was just reading history to everybody. Okay. In 2016, nope, I almost skipped a year. That would have been a mistake. In 2015, Penn and Coach Brad Harper won their first state title on the strength of 3 finalists and 2 state champions. Harper became the 7th former state champion to win a team title as a coach. The Calumet region crowned 4 champions in Colton Cummings of Lowell, Jacob Kovach of Maryville, Drew Hughes of Lowell, and Sean Streck of Maryville. The 2015 state finals were the first to be broadcast live on Fox Sports Indiana. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Adams Central in 1A, Yorktown in 2A, and Evansville Mater Dei in 3A. In 2016, Warren Central won its 2nd state title and first since 1980. The Warriors, on the strength of 4 finalists and a state champion, scored 109.5 points, eclipsing the state finals scoring record of 102.5 set by Perry Meridian in 2013. Coach Jim Tante was the head coach of both of these teams, and he became the first coach in IHSAA history to win a wrestling state title at 2 different schools. Chad Redd of New Palestine became Indiana's 9th 4-time state champ, 3rd to do it unbeaten, and 2nd to win at 4 different weights. The Calumet region crowned 5 champions in Colton Cummings of Lowell, Jacob Kovach of Maryville, Drew Hughes of Lowell, and Jake Clamola of Lake Central, and Sean Streck of Maryville. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Prairie Heights in 1A, Belmont in 2A, and Brownsburg in 3A. In 2017, Brownsburg won its first Indiana High School Athletic Association state wrestling championship. The Bulldogs, on the strength of 3 finalists and a state champion, outdistanced Chesterton for the title. Coach Derek Snyder became only the 2nd coach in IHSAA history to win a wrestling state title at 2 different schools, only 1 year after Tante became the first. The Calumet region crowned 2 champions in Brendan Black of Hobart and Andrew Davison of Chesterton. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Prairie Heights in 1A, Yorktown in 2A, and Brownsburg in 3A. Up until 2017, if girls in Indiana chose to participate in wrestling, they were required to train and compete with and against the guys on the boys' team. There were only a small number of girls that enjoyed a modicum of success competing against the boys. In 2016 and 17, Hamilton Heights coach Gary Myers and ISWA chairman Pat Culp led the way in the establishment of Indiana High School girls wrestling, the IHSGW. 2 regionals were contested, with the top 4 place winners qualifying for the state finals, hosted at Hamilton Heights High School. That first IHSGW state finals field consisted of 87 wrestlers competing. Penn High School won the first team state championship, and the Calumet region's first ever IHSGW state champ was Calumet's very own Caitlin Clark, who pinned her way to the 120-pound title. In 2018, Cathedral won the state championship on the strength of 4 finalists with 1 champion to lay claim to Coach Sean McGinley's 2nd title. The Calumet region crowned 4 state champions in Jacob Moran and Christian Rumpf of Portage, and Lucas Davison and Eli Picorni of Chesterton. Davison joined his brother Andrew and father Keith in the storied roster of Trojan state champions. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Prairie Heights in 1A, Wawasee in 2A, and Brownsburg in 3A. Penn High School won their 2nd straight IHSGW state championship, and the Calumet region crowned Kaylee Adams of Portage as an IHSGW state champion. In 2019, the Irish of Cathedral defended their state championship on the strength of 4 finalists, champions, to lay claim to Coach McGinley's 3rd title. The Calumet region crowned 3 state champions in Jacob Moran of Portage, Jesse Mendez of Crown Point, and Arthur A.J. Fowler of Calumet. A.J. won his title in a thrilling come-from-behind victory with a dramatic late 3rd period takedown that concluded in a fall. Andy and I had planned that if A.J. won and came running over to jump on us, we were both going to try to snatch him out of the air to lessen the impact and keep from getting knocked over in front of 15,000 people. It worked, but he cross-faced me and knocked my glasses off. Several photographers captured that scene with my glasses flying through the air. Fortunately, Trevino saw him fly off and retrieved them for me before someone crushed them, or I would have needed someone to drive the team back to the region on Sunday. He was the last of the 5 Fowler brothers to wrestle for us. They amassed a combined 506 career victories for the Warriors. It was one of my proudest moments in coaching. I got to sit in the chair and share the moment with my first state champion, Andy Trevino, by my side, and I got to coach the son and nephew of a couple of my other former wrestlers, Artie and Eddie Fowler.
Artie has created some monsters for Calumet, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
Oh,
I got to coach his son to a championship, and what a thrill it was for our wrestling family. We were greeted the next day. We had a little assembly in our field house. Some of the parents bought some cakes, and his grandma got to be there. It was really cool. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Adams Central in 1A, Western in 2A, and Brownsburg in 3A. Penn High School won their 3rd straight IHSGW state championship. The Calumet region crowned Madeline Rearick of Chesterton and Alexi Westfall of Crown Point as IHSGW state champions. The decade of the 2010s produced 6 3-time state champions in Sean McMurray of Portage, Kyle Erzman of Lake Central, Stefan Michich of Hanover Central, Brayton Lee of Brownsburg, Mason Paris of Lawrenceburg, and Asa Garcia of Avon. 2 4-time state champions were also crowned in Jason Sertzis of Crown Point and Chad Red of New Palestine. The 2020s, we were very fortunate in 2020 to be able to complete our wrestling season before the state of Indiana shut down schools and the IHSAA leadership canceled the rest of the state basketball series and all spring sports due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Irish of Cathedral and Coach McGinley completed a three-peat of state championships with 3 finalists and 2 state champs. The Calumet region crowned 2 state champions in Jesse Mendez of Crown Point and Evan Bates of Chesterton. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: North Posey in 1A, Belmont in 2A, and Cathedral in 3A. The Penn Kingsmen won their 4th consecutive IHSGW state championship. The Calumet region crowned Trinity Malave of Munster and Leah Bishop of Highland as IHSGW state champions. The 2020 and 21 wrestling season would prove to be challenging, to say the least. Most schools in Indiana were shut down during the spring of 2020. When the new school year began in the fall, many schools began on a virtual schedule. Several schools and conferences placed tight restrictions on practice routines, workout groupings, competition sites, setups, and spectators, mat and equipment care and sanitizing practices, laundry and showering practices, competition types, and a whole plethora of other requirements that made the season very memorable and a very big pain in the rear end. The state finals was run in shifts, with half of the weights contested on Friday afternoon and the other half wrestled in the evening. We were very fortunate indeed because the NCAAs and the Olympics in 2020 were canceled and postponed respectively. The 2021 state finals did not disappoint, though. Evansville, Mater Dei, and Chesterton waged an epic battle that resulted in a new scoring record for the Wildcats, 112 to 107. Coach Greg Schaefer led Evansville Mater Dei to its first title since 2007, the program's 13th overall, good for 2nd most all-time behind Bloomington. Schaefer also became only the 8th state championship coach to have also won a wrestling state title as an athlete. Evansville Mater Dei qualified 7, pushed 3 into the finals, and crowned 2 state champions. All 8 Chesterton qualifiers advanced to the Saturday sessions to earn places, including 2 finalists and a champion. The Calumet region claimed 3 state champions in Ashton Jackson of LaPorte, Sergio Lemley of Chesterton, an Illinois state champion for Chicago's Mount Carmel, who transferred back to his home school in Indiana when Illinois shut down all prep sports in 21. And Jesse Mendez of Crown Point. In the IHSAA team duels, the following teams won titles: Tell City in 1A, Garrett in 2A, and East Central in 3A. East Central in 3A and Evansville Mater Dei in the new 4A class. The Lebanon Tigers won their first Indiana High School Girls Wrestling State Championship. The Calumet region crowned Alexi Westfall of Crown Point and Nadine Summer of Lowell as IHSGW state champions. Chesterton's Chris Joel coached at 3 different DAC schools, Maryville, Valpo, and Chesterton, in a 34-year coaching career from 1986 to 2021. He was on staff at Chesterton when the Trojans won the state title in 1989. At Maryville High School, his teams won a DAC title, 4 sectionals, had 7 state qualifiers, and 6 place winners. In his 18 years at Chesterton, Joel's teams won 10 sectionals, 2 regionals, 2 semi-states, qualified for 2 IHSWCA team state finals, and 2 IHSAA state runner-up trophies in 2017 and 2021. Joel also coached 63 Trojan state qualifiers, 34 place winners, 5 state champions, and 1 200-plus dual meets. The Wildcats' scoring mark of 112 points was a short-lived record.
Yeah.
The Crown Point Bulldogs of 2022 qualified 11 for the state finals, pushed 9 of 11 through to the quarterfinals, guaranteeing a podium finish, advanced 8 to the semifinals for top 4 places, and sent 6 to wrestle under the spotlight for a state championship. When the dust cleared and the house lights were brought up, the Dogs had a 5th. They had 2 4ths, 3 runners-up, and 3 state champions. And oh yeah, 178 points to eclipse the year-old scoring standard by a whopping 66-point margin. Coach Brandon Lorick won his first state title in convincing fashion. Heather Kroll of Northeastern and Juliana Ocampo of New Haven advanced to the state finals, marking the first time that 2 girls qualified in the same season. Earning the 5 titles from the Calumet region were Ashton Jackson of LaPorte and Logan Frazier, Jesse Mendez, and Sam Goen from Crown Point, and Christian Carroll of New Prairie, the Cougars' first ever state champion. Jesse Mendez and Sam Goen, Jesse Mendez became only the 10th wrestler in IHSAA history to win 4 championships. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Tell City down south in 1A, Belmont in 2A, and Columbus East in 3A, with Crown Point earning the 4A title. The Penn Kingsmen returned to their winning ways in claiming their 5th IHSGW state championship. However, the Calumet region failed to crown a champion in the IHSGW state championship for the first time. Crown Point pulled off the repeat in 2023, finishing just 11 points shy of their scoring record of 178 they set in 2022. The Bulldogs qualified 11 for the state, pushed 9 into the quarters, 7 to the semis, 4 into the finals. They placed 7th, 5th, 3rd 3 times, and crowned 4 state champions. The Calumet region crowned 6 state champions in Aiden Torres of Chesterton, Sam Goen, Cody Goodwin, Orlando Cruz, and Will Clark of Crown Point, and Cole Salome of Kankakee Valley, who won the Cougars' first ever state title. Juliana Ocampo of New Haven qualified for her 2nd trip to the state finals. Penn repeated to win their 6th IHSGW state championship. The Calumet region crowned IHSGW state champions in Alexandra Bastayich, of Highland and Ellie Janofsky of Lake Central. In the IHSWCA team duels, the following teams won titles: Tell City in 1A, Western in 2A, Mishawaka in 3A, and Crown Point in 4A. In 8 seasons, Crown Point's Brandon Lorick has led the Bulldogs to 100-plus dual victories, 5 DAC titles, sectionals, 7 regionals, 5 semi-states, 2 IHSAA state titles, 3 IHSWCA team dual titles, and he's crowned 11 individual state champions. The 2024 state finals moved to Evansville's Ford Center because of the NBA All-Star Game being hosted at Indy's Gainbridge Fieldhouse, provided fans with one of the tightest team races in history. Brownsburg outdistanced Center Grove and Crown Point 124.5 to 121.5 to 121. Coach Derek Snyder became the first wrestling coach to win multiple titles at more than one school. The Bulldogs qualified 9 to state, advanced 8 to the quarters, pushed 6 into the semis, 3 into the finals, crowned 2 state champions. Calumet Region teams advanced 5 to the finals, but only managed a solitary state champion in Will Clark of Crown Point. Once again, Heather Krall of Northeastern and Juliana Ocampo of New Haven advanced to the state finals. Ocampo, in her 3rd trip to the state finals, became the first girl to earn a place on the podium with her 6th place finish. New Haven won their first IHSGW state championship. The Calumet region crowned repeat IHSGW state champions in Alexandra Bostayich of Highland and Ellie Janofsky of Lake Central. In the IHSWCA duels, the following teams won titles: Rochester in 1A, Delta in 2A, Floyd Central in 3A, and Crown Point in 4A. The 2024 offseason brought about several significant National Federation high school rules changes that helped to align high school wrestling more closely with the collegiate rules. Wrestlers are now in bounds with only 1 point of contact on the mat or out of bounds line, meaning they can be almost completely out of bounds while still wrestling. This change aims to encourage more offensive wrestling and reduce confusion regarding out of bounds calls. Takedowns are now worth 3 points, and the near fall scoring system has been adjusted to award 2 points for a 2-second near fall, 3 points for a 3-second near fall, and 4 points for a 4-second near fall. The result has been an enormous increase in the number of tech falls occurring during matches and a speeding up of the time it takes to complete dual meets and tournaments. 2024-2025, the season that we are just now entering into the boys' state tournament this weekend. The 2024-25 season marked the beginning of girls wrestling as an officially sanctioned IHSAA championship sport, after being classified as an emerging sport for the past 3 years. During the 23-24 school year, more than 1,400 girls from 177 schools competed in girls wrestling in Indiana, even though Indiana was quite late getting into the game as the 46th state to officially sanction girls wrestling. The IHSGW had been running an Indiana state tournament since the 2017 season. This season, all 9th grade girls were required to compete in girls-only competitions. The 10th through 12th grade girls who had wrestled in the boys' state tournament series in prior seasons could opt out of the girls' tournament and compete in the boys' tourney, but they could no longer compete in both. The 3-week-long girls' state tournament was held on Fridays due to the ongoing shortage of wrestling officials at 16 sectional sites, 4 regional sites, and the state finals were held at the Cortiva Coliseum at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Some 2,217 girls from 273 schools competed in the 16 sectionals of the first IHSAA sanctioned girls state wrestling tournament. A 16-woman bracket was used, with the top 4 place winners advancing to each level of the tournament. Full wrestlebacks from the quarterfinals were used at the sectional. Straight consolations were used at the regional, with the semifinal losers wrestling for 3rd place. At state, the quarterfinal losers wrestled back for 5th through 8th places, while the semifinal losers wrestled for 3rd place. As the 2024-25 season winds its way toward the Boys State Tournament Series in the upcoming weeks, here's a quick review of results from some of the more prominent regular season tournaments. The champions of the Capital City Classic were Westfield. Delphi's Mike Atwood Memorial, Carroll from Fort Wayne. Lake Central's Bob Emmerich Harvest Classic, Portage. Calumet's Chris Trikoff Memorial Invitational, Lowell. Elkhart's Jim Nicholson Invite, Penn. Maryville's Tom Cameron Memorial Invitational, Lafayette Harrison. Crown Point's Carl Carnahan Memorial Invitational, Brownsburg. Rochester's John McKee Invite, North Miami. The Marion County Tournament, Indianapolis Roncalli. Castle's Bob Harmon Invite, Vincennes Lincoln. The Clinton Prairie Invite, Terre Haute South. Jeffersonville's Jeff Classic, Bloomington South. Mishawaka's Al Smith Invitational, Crown Point. Mooresville's Holiday Classic, Perry Meridian. Connorsville Spartan Classic, Fishers. Columbus East Invite, Columbus East. Evansville Mater Dei Classic, Union County, Kentucky. The Maconaquah Invite, Maconaquah. The Lake County Championship, Maryville. The IHSWCA Team State, North Miami in 1A, Barrett in 2A, Roncalli in 3A, and Brownsburg in 4A. The IHSAA Girls Northwest Indiana Sectional Team Champions. The Illiana Christian Sectional Champion was Maryville. The Hobart Sectional Champion was Hobart. The IHSAA Girls Northern Indiana Regional Team Champions at the Goshen Regional were the Maryville Pirates. The inaugural 2025 Girls IHSAA State Championship. Jay County was 6th with 52. Barrett was 5th with 57.5. Whiteland was 4th with 61. Franklin was 3rd with 63.5. Maryville was 2nd with 65. And the Columbus East Olympians were the first girls state championship team with 89 points. Calumet Region IHSAA state champions. Joy Cantu went 4-0 at Team State this past weekend, so I've modified her record. Joy Cantu finished 41-0 for Maryville. Ava Strayer finished 39-0 for Crown Point. And three-peat champion Alexandra Basayich finished 43-0 for Highland. The inaugural
did you know that Joy didn't even let anybody out of the first minute?
I don't know. I didn't go that deep.
She didn't let anybody out of the first minute.
She's tough.
Yeah.
She gave the boys fits for the last 4 years.
She's going to give people fits for a long time.
The inaugural Indiana High School Girls Wrestling Coaches Association Team State. In 6th place, Hobart, 2-2. In 5th place, Whiteland, 3-1. In 4th place, Franklin, 2-2. In 3rd, Jay County, 3-1. In 2nd, Franklin Central, 3-1. And the Maryville Pirates went unbeaten at 4-0 on the day, winning their championship match over Franklin Central, 47-34. The Calumet Region Conference champions, the Duneland Conference, the Crown Point Bulldogs, the GLAC, I believe that's the Great Lakes Athletic Conference, is Hammond Central. The Greater South Shore Conference, Griffith. The Hoosier Conference, Rensselaer. And the NCC, which stands for Northwest Crossroads Conference, I believe, was the Lowell Red Devils.
Earn while you learn from the best hands in the business. The Bricklayers Allied Craftworkers for Indiana Kentucky Apprenticeship. That's right, this is a paid apprenticeship.
I'm getting an education while learning a trade and getting paid for it.
The
thing that surprised me the most about this apprenticeship program is the respect I have received after the proper time and training.
Classes start soon, so apply now. There are training centers throughout Indiana and Kentucky. We are the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers for Indiana Kentucky Apprenticeship, the best hands in the business.
Four Seasons Mechanical proudly serves Northwest Indiana, providing quality, reasonably priced, reliable service. With a quality and comfort guarantee, the professionals at Four Seasons Mechanical offer a wide range of services in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Whether it's residential or commercial, Four Seasons Mechanical is there 24/7. To find out more, the website is fourseasonsmechanical.com or give them a call at 219-756-7020. Four Seasons Mechanical, your indoor air quality specialist.
The following list is the thing I think I enjoyed most putting together. This following exhaustive list contains the greatest team achievements, the outstanding coaches, and the highest placing wrestlers of every Calumet region team that I did not already elaborate on in my narrative. These are the best non-state champion teams, coaches, and wrestlers. Here goes. Andre, 1967, they were second in a sectional, fourth in the regional, sixth at state. Coaches, Ray Lincoln Hall, Marty Hutzel, and Ralph Ayatrola. And their top placing wrestler, Robert Ayatrola, finished third in 76. The Boone Grove Wolves, in 2000, they finished third at the Crown Point sectional. In 03, they finished fourth. Ed Ivano, a Crown Point grad himself, was the pioneer coach. Dave Hinkle was a coach there. And their outstanding wrestler, Patrick Rigdon, placed fifth in the state in 04. Calumet won 24 conference titles, 24 sectionals, 11 regionals, a semi-state. Finished third in 83 and second in 84. And as much as I hate to talk about myself, Jim Wadkins, 16 conference titles, 9 sectionals, 5 regionals, 464 wins. Ken Stegall coached the team to the state runner-up trophy in 1984, and he placed third in the state in 1967. He's one of our 3 third placers, along with Pete Marinkovic in 1983 and Jeff Asbill Jeff Asbill in 2002. Those 3 men finished third. Chesterton won 1 conference, 19 sectionals, 6 regionals, 4 semi-states. In 81, 17, and 21, they finished second in the state. Outstanding Chesterton coaches, Bruce Sheriff, Gary Burkhart, Denny Evans, Chris Joel, Andy Trevino. And their top-ranking wrestlers, too long of a list to squeeze in, they've had 13 state runners-up. Crown Point finished second in the state in 2012 and third in 24. Carl Carnahan, Bob Reese, Bud Ballou, and they've had 16 state runners-up. Dyer Central, they won the Calumet Conference in 1961 under Coach Les Milby. And in 1953, Tom Hippensteel was their lone state qualifier. East Chicago Central, 10 sectionals, 3 regionals, a semi-state, 6th in the state in 93, 4th in the state in 94. Coaches, Joe Flores, Scott Hinkle, Billy Kelly. Outstanding wrestlers, Tim and Robert Maldonado finished 2nd in the state in 99 and 2000, respectively. East Chicago Roosevelt, 3 sectionals, a regional, 5th in the state 3 times, 4th in the state 2 times, 3rd in the state 5 times. Outstanding coach, Kermit French. 37 state runners-up. East Chicago, Washington, 11 sectionals. They've had 3 fifth placers.
Hold on, Coach. Did you say 37 second place?
Yeah, East Chicago Roosevelt had 37 state runners-up. Now, you got to understand, in the early year, and I'm not dismissing this, in the early years between the 20s and the 50s, there were only about 15, 20 schools in the state that wrestled up until about 1950.
Okay.
I mean, it was an open meet. We didn't start sectional. I don't think sectional started until 50, if I'm not mistaken. And that's not to take anything away from East Chicago. They were outstanding teams. They were coached very well. The Northern Indiana Conference was Tech, Hammond Tech, East Chicago schools, Mishawaka, South Bend Central, some of those guys. East Chicago, Washington won 11 sectionals. They had 3 fifth placers, 2 fourth placers, 4 third placers, and 2 state runners up. Wait, check that. I got to get this straight. I'm messing this up. East Chicago, Washington won 11 sectionals. They placed 5th in the state 3 times, 4th in the state 2 times, 3rd in the state 4 times, and 2nd in the state twice. And their outstanding coaches were Herman Dickes and Cliff Freiberger. They had 28 state runners-up in their history. Gary Edison, 4 sectionals, 2 regionals, finished 4th in the state in 65 and 3rd in the state in 66, coached by Marv Siren and Bruce Sheriff. Their outstanding wrestlers, Blas Munoz and Mike Ramos, finished 3rd in the state in 1965 and 1966. Gary Emerson placed 4th in the state in 1922. In 1965, they finished 2nd in the sectional, 3rd in the regional, and 9th in the state. Their coaches, Harry Solborski and Wayne Wachowski, and they had 4 state runners-up. Gary Frabel placed 4th in the state in 1922. They were coached by their football coach, Johnny Kyle, and their lone place winner finished 2nd in the state in 1922, named David Levy. Gary Horace Mann, in 1968, they finished 7th in the state. In 1969, they won the sectional, finished 2nd in the regional, and 5th in the state. They were coached by Doug Ottman and Dan Kachaturov. And their outstanding wrestler finished 3rd in the state in 1969, Bob Renslow. Gary Lou Wallace won a sectional in 1968, coached by George Reikovich and Dave Templin, one of their football coaches. Their highest place winner in 1977, Dwayne Uritis, finished 3rd. Gary Roosevelt won 5 sectionals. They were coached by John Campbell, James Holliday, and Jordan Smith. And their outstanding individual, Cleveland Robinson, was a state runner-up in 1962. Gary Tolliston, in 1963, won a sectional. Their coaches, Shipley Farrow and Maurice Hunt. Richard Grayson and Leroy Kirk both finished 4th in the state in 1969. Gary Westside, 1978 and 1979 sectional champions, coached by Castle White and Gene Johnson. Their highest place winner finished 4th in 1969, Baldemar Munoz. Gary Wirt, 1964, they placed third in the state. 1966, they won the sectional championship. Marv Siren, Don Rogers, Ed Buckley, and Steve Colin were their outstanding coaches. Steve Pearson and Rob Johansson were state runners-up in 64 and 76. I'm not sure if Rob is Zach's dad or his uncle, but I know they're related somehow.
He is.
Griffith won 6 sectionals, 3 regionals, a semi-state. In 2003, they finished second in the state. Outstanding coaches, Scott Hendren, Travis Walls, Chris Soika. Their outstanding place winners, David Martin III, Steve Siokas, and Cole Cervantes finished 4th in the state. Hammond High, 15 sectionals, a regional. They finished 10th in the state, 9th 3 times, 8th, 6th 2 times, 4th and 2nd. Outstanding coaches, Carl Deek, Bill Markovich, Adam Johnston. They finished with 14 state runners-up. We're winding down, guys. Well, not really, but Hammond Bishop Knoll has won 7 sectionals, 2 regionals. Outstanding coaches, George Wilson, Bob Sivilich, Dave Maldonado. Their outstanding place winner, a runner-up in 2002, Daniel Bedoy. Hammond Central has finished 3rd in their section. In 2022, finished 3rd in the sectional, 8th in the regional. Their only coach has been Kevin Pursley. Their outstanding individuals, Dimitri Dean, Victor Rodriguez, and Anthony Hinton, have all been semi-state quarterfinalists. Hammond Clark, 5 sectionals, have placed 10th, 8th twice, 7th, 6th twice, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. Outstanding coaches, Ray Williams, Tom Cameron, Wayne Wesley, 9 state runners-up. Hammond Gavitt won 5 sectionals, finished 9th twice and 5th. Outstanding coaches, George Smith, Rich J., Bill Melby, Chris Soika. Their highest place winner in 1969 with a 4th place finish was Jerry Cameron, Tom's younger brother, longtime coach at Lowell. Hammond Morton, 8 sectionals, a regional. In 1975, they finished 2nd in the state. Coaches, Bob Gallner, Fred Kepler, John Pimentel, and Bruce Sheriff. And they finished with 3 state runners-up. Hammond Tech, 5 sectionals, 2 regionals. They placed 10th, 8th 3 times, 5th. And they finished 3rd in the state twice. Outstanding coaches, Paul Homan, Charles Prade, and Chuck Emlin. And they've had 9 state runners-up. Hanover Central, one conference title. This year, they finished 9th in the 2A team state. Outstanding coaches, Nick Petrov and Andrew Bradbury. Highest place winners, Eric Howe in 2005 and Mike Sands in 2006, finished 3rd. Hebron finished 5th in the sectional in 21, 22, and 24. Their outstanding coach, Todd Adamczyk. And they had 1 state qualifier in 2019, Ewan Donovan. Highland, 13 sectionals, 2 regionals. Finished 8th in the state twice, 7th and 6th. Outstanding coaches, Larry Johnson, Kurt Augustin, Mike Pointer, Mark Maldonado. And they've had 4 state runners-up. Hobart, 19 conference, 30 sectionals, 10 regionals, 3 semi-states. They finished 10th in the state twice, 7th, 6th twice, 5th, 3rd, and they finished 3rd. They finished 2nd this year in the 3A team duels. Outstanding coaches, Steve Balish, Jason Cook, Alex Ramos, Zach Johansson. And their highest place winner in 1979, Ron Skimmyhorn, was a runner-up. Ileana Christian, relatively new to Indiana, has finished 7th at the Crown Point sectional in 21 and 23. Coaches Dean Bosman and David DeBoer. Their highest place winner in 2024, Carson Ulrich, was a semi-state qualifier. Kankakee Valley, 12 sectionals. Outstanding coaches, Walt Prochnow, Brad Bervan, Eric Kidwell. Their highest place winners, Dominic Willis in 04 and Tim Schoenveld, finished 6th in 14. Lake Central, 1 conference, 18 sectional, 3 regional, finished 10th and 9th in the state. Coaches, Bob Kamara, Bob Emmerich, Rod Wortman, Ryan Alb, Josh Morgan, Luke Triveline. They've coached 9 state runners-up. Lake Station Edison, 2 sectional championships. Rich Wren, Bill Derula, Dan Mora. Highest place winners, finished 3rd in 90 and 95, Stacy Sullivan and Dan Chavez. LaPorte, 23 sectionals, 6 regionals, 4 semi-states, finished 7th, 6th, and in 1999, 3rd in the state. Outstanding coaches, S.H. Leitzman, Bob Hoke, Chuck Ford, Terry Miller, and Louis Kuzdas. And they've had 4 state runners-up. Lowell, 3 conference, 8 sectional, a semi-state, and in state they have finished 10th, 9th, 7th twice, 5th, and in 1928 they were 4th. Coaches, M.S. Gardner, John Todd, Jim Hurst, Jerry Cameron, Mark Line, Bobby Howard, Joe Stanley, Kevin English, and they have coached 7 state runners-up. Maryville, 8 conference, 33, 8 conference, 33 sectionals, 17 regionals, 7 semi-states. They finished 9th, 8th twice, 7th 3 times, 6th, 5th 3 times, 4th twice, and in 08 they were 3rd. Outstanding coaches, James Kaiser, Tom Cameron, Chris Joel, Mark Rosenbaum, Randy Qualitza, and David Maldonado. And the Pirates have coached 15 state runners-up. Michigan City, they finished 5th in the state in 27 and 4th in the state in 31. Outstanding coaches, Andy Gill, Ray Holm, Brian Anderson, who left and went to Wabash College for about 20 years and has an outstanding run at Wabash. Brian Swallow, Chuck Wallace, 4 state runners-up. Michigan City Elston, 1978, they won a sectional championship. Outstanding coaches, D. Davis, D. Jones, Max Glenn, and Joe Martirano. Outstanding individuals, Ernie Dingler and Steve Murgita, both finished 3rd in the state in 1970 and 71. Michigan City Rogers finished 10th in the state in 81, 8th in 79. Outstanding coaches, Bill Karpinski, Tom Tennyson, Marty Quinn, Don Drake, and Lynn Steinheiser. Outstanding individuals, Joe Lilovich and Scott Bailey finished 2nd in the state in 83 and 89. Munster, 11 sectionals, 3 regionals, 10th in the state in 79. Outstanding coaches, John Todd, Al Bochnowski, Leroy Marsh, Dennis Haas, Bob Melby, Chuck Emlin, Jim Coleus, Dan Gillardin, and Zach Slosser. And they've coached 5 runners-up. New Prairie, 3 sectionals, 7-time team state qualifiers. In 14 and 24, they finished 3rd. Don Kane, Bill Spire, Frank Hobart, Wes Hobart, and Bobby Whitenack. And their highest place winner as a runner-up in 2007 was Philip, I'm going to mess this name up, Oudhuis, Oudhuis. Philip, I apologize. I did not check that pronunciation. Philip Oudhuis, that's what I'm going with. North Newton, 3 sectional championships. Keith Morin, Dave Gregory, Philip Wagner, Bruce Cunningham, and Rick Barron. They've had 6 state qualifiers in their school's history. Portage, 19 conference, 36 sectional, 19 regional, 12 semi-states. State, they've been 8th twice, 7th twice, 5th 3 times, 4th twice, 3rd 5 times, and in 98 and 01, they were 2nd in the state. Outstanding coaches, Bruce Sheriff, Larry Tharp, Ed Pendosky, Pat Wilkins, Leroy Vega, Andrew Bradbury, Louis Acuna. 15 state runners-up in the Portage program. Rensselaer, 15 sectionals, 2 regionals, a 1A team state where they finished 3rd this year. Outstanding coaches, Joe Bervan, Chris Meeks, Brad Bervan, and Hunter Hickman. Their highest place winner in school history is 5th in 2006 by Ryan Kaufman. River Forest, your alma mater, 6-time conference champions. I don't know if they ever won a Northwest Hoosier Conference title or not, but they
did not.
But they've won 6th in the Greater South Shore. Brian Wesley, Mark Hidalgo, who's won 5 of those GSSC titles himself. Their highest place winner in 2022 was Jeffrey Bailey, who placed 5th. South Newton could not find, they've struggled, could not find a team achievement. Bob Hayes, outstanding coach, and they've had 2 state qualifiers in Ryan Bell in 2010 and Damari Embry in 2016. Valparaiso, 1-time DAC champs, 7-time sectional. They finished 10th in state They finished 10th in state, and in 64, they finished 7th. Outstanding coaches, Paul Miller, John Cook, Todd Evans, Mark Line, Jake Plesac, Jason Cook. 8 times they've had state runners-up in the state championship. Wheeler, outstanding team title. I think they finished 2nd in the conference, 2nd or 3rd in the conference a few years ago. Outstanding coaches, Robin Haddocks, Jose Diaz, Jason Cook. Their highest state place winner in 2020 with a 3rd place finish, Giovanni Diaz. And last but not least, the Whiting Oilers. They were 7-time sectional runners-up at the East Chicago-Washington sectional. Outstanding coaches, Bill Reby and Rob Scooter Sagutovic. They had 1 state qualifier in school history. In 1981, Wayne Blake qualified for state. He actually went down and went 2-2 at the state meet, but 2-2 didn't get him on the podium. He lost in a Russellback round that would have got him into the 3rd place match. This list has been my feeble attempt to include all of the Calumet region programs in this talk. It was not intended to be a comprehensive list of everyone's favorites. Any mistakes or omissions are the complete fault of my own. They are a result of me biting off more than I could chew. Outstanding IHSAA officials with ties to the Calumet region who have worked the state finals. Many others have worked on the middle school, high school, club, local, regional levels, but space limits me to listing these select few. Jim Troyer worked the state finals 30 times. And I think Jim was waiting for this year. He always cracked the joke. Jim was missing a finger. And I am certain that Jim loved doing that this year when he refereed, because he didn't have to hold a finger down for a takedown. Charles Chuck Barnett has done 26 state finals. Jeff the General Colburn has done 19. Jim Hoover, 19. My buddy Tom Lambert has done 15. Mike Galando, rest his soul, 13. Roger Griffith, 13. Andy Myhall, 13. Ray Pettit, 13. Tom Condon, 11. George Maladette, 10. Marty Schlosser, 10. Chris Conlisk, 9. Mike the Beef Faulkner, 9. Troy Hahn, 9. Those 2 men I just mentioned, Mike Faulkner and Troy Hahn, we joke with them. They hit the mat so hard when they call a pin. We always joked with those guys, they knocked the dust loose on the rafters in most of the gyms they were in. You did not miss when they called a fall. Mark Hollingsworth, 9. Mark Miller, 9. Scott Wallace, 9. Henry Wilk, 9. Joe Martirano, 8. Joe Martirano is a referee, a football coach, a wrestling coach, but he used to tell the best story in the back room about when he wrestled a bear at a county fair one time. I can't tell it here. I can't even begin to get close to the hilarity of that story. But if you ever talk to any of these officials that knew Joe, ask him about the bear story.
All right.
Larry McMillan, 8. J.D. Minch, 8. Dean Sangalis, 8. Ken Gradeless, 6. Tom Ladow, 6. Barry Woodward, 6. Scott Billings, 5. Bob Foster, 5. Robert Bob Jones, 5. George Bolin, 4. Mark Quinlan, 4. Chuck Streetman, 4. Todd Evans, 3. Tom Ling, 3. Chris Trikoff, 3. Paul Vitarisi, 3. Tom Cooper, 2. Jim Kaminkowitz, 2. Pablo Maldonado, 2. Doug Ottman, 2. Warren Outlaw, 2. Jim Plummer, 2. John Todd, 2. Craig Boltemeyer, 1. Mike Gursky, 1. Dan McCartney, 1. Mike McNarney, 1. Rod Morgan, 1. Mike Rowe, 1. Joe Roman, 1. Fred Sanchez was my workout partner in high school, was our dean of students here for 20 years of my career, 25 years. He has done 1 state final. And Scott Blink, 1. One of the first things I did after I began my coaching career was to study the rules of wrestling and take the test to become a licensed IHSAA official. I learned so many things about the sport that I thought I already knew, and it made me a much better coach. It changed my attitude and the approach that I took toward officials to this very day. It was one of the best things I ever did to improve my effectiveness as a coach. One of the finest compliments I was ever paid as a coach was by Tom Lambert, the gentleman I mentioned who did 15 state finals. He came up to me one time. There was a break in the action in a match. We had blood time or something. And he came over to me and he said, "Jim, I love refereeing your matches because when there's a break in the action, instead of coaching me, you're coaching your kid." And I've never received a higher compliment. I've always respected Tom. Tom was just a class act on the mat, worked hard, one of my favorite all-time officials. Women's wrestling is here to stay. In fact, it has probably done more to save men's collegiate wrestling than the National Wrestling Coaches Association has. The young ladies are in a position to make a profound impact on the sport, not only as competitors, but as coaches and officials too. With the growth of women's wrestling, the need for both of these roles is at an all-time high. We need women's coaches and officials to meet this demand. If you're interested in officiating, there are scholarships available from the IHSAA and the several officials associations around the state. Not just women, we need men too. Contact Chuck Barnett. Look him up online for more details if you're interested. Give back to the sport. Get your officials license. Let schools and coaches know and help grow our sport. The average age of our top-level officials is ever increasing. We need for high school and collegiate wrestlers, men and women, to take the test and become licensed officials. The future of our sport depends upon it. In maybe the longest conclusion and dedication in history, I am on my wind-up down, and I have a page left.
Oh my goodness. I bet you are happy right now. I bet you.
Yes, I am, but the most important thing I have to say is coming up.
All right.
The world of wrestling is not just about the outcomes, like wins, losses, and championships. There's an incredible amount of respect amongst coaches, officials, and wrestlers about the deeper values of our sport. Wrestling is an extremely powerful tool for personal growth, teaching us all that our worth goes far beyond anything that we've accomplished on the mat. To quote wrestling icon Dan Gable, Once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. More enduringly than any other sport, wrestling teaches self-control and pride. Some have wrestled without great skill. None have wrestled without pride. From the many stories, stats, characters, and legends throughout the history of our great sport, I would like to dedicate this labor of love to all of the coaches, wrestlers, officials, timers, scorers, table help, all the way down to the kid who threw out the towel or whacked the referee in the back with a rolled up towel to halt the action at a period's end. Finally, to the media folks who covered our programs, Indiana Matt, the Post Tribune, Region Sports Network that's covering this, The Times, WJOB, WYIN, Channel 56, John Burbridge, Alex Burr, Joe Caprino, Rick Chitwood, Jim Dietelo, Mike Farkas, David Funk, Bill Green, Al Hamnick, Jim Hunsley, Roman Madrowski, John Mutka, Mike Nieto, Kevin O'Keefe, John O'Malley, Grace O'Pinker, Mike Ozapoth, Jim Peters, Mike Reiser, one of my own, Brian Waddle, Tommy Williams, who we just lost recently, just to name a few. My apologies for anyone I forgot or overlooked. You've made the experience better for all of us. If the state champions and title-winning coaches were the only ones who ever benefited from wrestling, then a lot of tireless effort has been spent for naught. I dedicate all of the effort that went into producing this history to all the coaches, wrestlers, and officials who never got to experience the highest heights of our sport. To all the coaches who struggled to fill their lineups, collected and washed the uniforms and towels, set up, swept, mopped, broke down the mats, drove the team bus, all on shoestring budgets, who never got to hoist a championship trophy or banner, nor walk in the parade of champions at state, nor sit in a corner chair under the lights at Southport, MSA, or the field house. To all the wrestlers who never got to be their team's go-to guy, whose job it was to keep dual meets close by avoiding a pin, a tech fall, or a major decision and giving up bonus points, or whose job it was to score much-needed team points on the consolation mats, in their role as tweeners to go after the next best thing for their team after suffering a devastating, dream-crushing setback. To all the officials who broke even from their financial investment for shoes, striped shirts, and whistles, to do an often thankless job in front of coaches and crowds that frequently noticed only their shortcomings and mistakes, but rarely praised them for the many outstanding calls made on their behalf. For the early wake-up calls, snow and ice-filled drives on interstate highways and backcountry roads, lunches of cold pizza, sandwiches, hot dogs, stale popcorn, and watered-down soft drinks, hastily eaten in a makeshift dressing room that sometimes doubled as a broom closet situated next to a smelly locker room. I think I can speak for all of these folks. We wouldn't change a thing. All of the experiences, good and bad, characters, good and bad, and stories. Oh, the stories we can all tell. True, false, and always embellished. About the oldest, greatest, and toughest sport known to man, and now women also. Finally, I would like to thank everyone whose path I have ever crossed as a wrestler, coach, official, or teacher, whether it was as a teammate, competitor, or coach, either in an adversarial, collegial, or support role. Thank you all for pouring a large part of yourself into helping build me into the man and coach that I became, and for sharing in any of the successes that we've all been able to enjoy with the multitude of wrestling people over the years. It has been my high honor to be able to share the greatest sport in the history of the world with all of you. Always remember these immortal words spoken by Theodore Teddy Roosevelt at the Sorbonne in Paris on April 23rd, 1910. It's one of my favorite quotes. My oldest daughter, Megan, a few years ago, actually embroidered this quote onto a cross-stitch thing that I just love. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Last page.
Oh man, I love that quote.
Whenever I read this TR quote, I'm reminded of two of my longtime esteemed coaching colleagues, Bill Reby of Whiting and Dan Mora of Lake Station. Both of these men coached in diverse, socioeconomically challenged communities for 30 plus years. Both guys struggled to field teams over the years for every reason imaginable, but they kept at it. They kept plugging away. They kept showing up for the kids in those communities. They coached their own kids, but they shared themselves with other people's kids as well. Kids who quite often didn't have much. Kids who didn't have the money for shoes or a USA card or tournament entry fees or a cool wrestling t-shirt or maybe even lunch. These kids needed them. Maybe they didn't have a mom or a dad to drive them to practice or pack them a lunch or tell them how proud they were of them after a match. So Bill and Dan did all of these things for their kids, other people's kids. That's why when Bill Reby retired, over 300 former wrestlers, students, and peers showed up for his send-off party at Whiting Park. That's why Dan Mora's 70th birthday party this past fall filled the American Legion Hall with his former wrestlers, softball players, high school and college teammates, and co-workers from his decades-long job at the mill as a pipe fitter welder. Nobody in attendance asked these men what their one-loss records were or to see the collection of trophies in their trophy case. Their victories and trophies were all walking around the park and Legion Hall. This was, as TR spoke of, an example of the triumphs of high achievement for spending themselves in a worthy cause. Thank you for all you did for other people's kids in the arena, guys. My coach at Wabash, Max Surveys, called us some little giants whenever he was proud of something that we accomplished. In fact, he entitled his history of Wabash athletics that very thing, Some Little Giants. Any successes that many of us have enjoyed in the sport as wrestlers, coaches, officials, has been the direct result of our standing on the shoulders of giants, the men and women who came before us and left us a trail to follow, the giants of Indiana wrestling. You all are some big giants. Thank you all for your example and your leadership in the world's oldest and greatest sport, wrestling. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Region Sports. This has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. I can't even count the hours I have invested in this. I'm going to print a copy of it up and pass it out to some of my close friends. Do not grade the grammar. Do not grade the shortcuts and shorthand. But it has been one of the true labors of love in my 41 years of coaching wrestling. And I'm so thankful that Region Sports Network gave me an opportunity to do this. I hope somebody watches it. I hope somebody listens to it. I think we ran 2 hours tonight. I'm glad I'm going to pay for airtime.
No, I willingly pay for it out of my own pocket with the information that you've been able to bless us with, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Great addition to the sport of wrestling. I've had the opportunity to commentate your matches. I've had the opportunity to coach against you. I've had an opportunity to stand next to you and just to listen to a lot of the things that you say and the way you carry yourself. You are wrestling, and we thank you as well, as much as you have thanked everybody else. what you've done for the sport of wrestling with just this. You went tedious. You went so deep into some of this stuff. Like I tell everybody, you started at the Bible and you worked your way to the present day. That's not easy, especially being a teacher and a coach and a family man. You know, you have a lot of things that you have to do, but this that you have put together it's going to bless a lot of people for the next
Well,
5 decades.
I hope people enjoy it. You complimented me on my team this year, and you obviously have not seen us wrestle very much. This has been maybe the most challenging season I've ever had as a coach. We lost several kids to attrition, kids that didn't come out we thought were going to come out, kids that came out and quit, kids that have been struggling with weight, a couple of injuries, kids that have dealt with concussion protocols, kids with skin issues. Everything that can go wrong in a season has fallen this. It's just been a very difficult season to coach. I've been very fortunate since Andy Trevino took the head coaching job at Chesterton, which I was tickled to death. I wrote his letter of recommendation for a young man who I coached and Andy coached, Lamberto Garcia. We call him Berto. He's a young man about 29, 30 years old. He's been our go-to guy. He's been our technician. Wrestling is a young man's sport. It's a young man's sport, wrestle and a coach. And I've been very fortunate over the years. I've had some great assistants, and I haven't gone through the list because I don't want to omit anybody, but there have been some great guys in our room. You know, I'm a 63-year-old fat guy. I haven't been down on the mat in a long time, but I've had some great guys in there that have done that. We're struggling. We're struggling to keep it together this year. This has been a big part of motivating me. I've written on this thing in hotel rooms over Christmas break down in Lafayette when we were getting our butts kicked. I spent a snow day a couple of weeks ago writing on this. I'm sure my wife is tired of hearing about it. I'm sure she's tired of seeing me typing and looking up stuff. Like I said, it's been a blast. I hope some people listen to it. I hope your coach's name was in there. I had a young man on the Griffith staff the other day come up to me at our conference and tell me that I mentioned his grandfather's name, who was a state champ back in East Chicago or Hammond 50, 60, 70 years ago. And that made me feel good.
Well, it made me feel good too, because I've been hearing, I don't know, Coach, I'm telling you, dozens of people have come up to me and have said such great things about all the information that you brought in just the first episode. And now with the second episode, a lot of these guys are going to hear their names.
Well, I'm hoping some old timers get to hear this. I'm hoping Al Smith and Tom Lambert and Henry Wilk and some of these guys around the state. I hope some of the guys down south. This thing is accessible on Facebook, correct?
Yes, Facebook, YouTube, Region Sports Network, regionsports.com. We'll make sure, and if anybody else would like to place it on theirs, we'd be more than happy to give it to you.
I have purposely not publicized it. I think I posted a link on Indiana Matt after the first session. I didn't want to preempt myself. I didn't want to give anybody a heads up. I hope people enjoy it. I hope some people enjoy these pictures. I hope you can blow it up. I hope on a big screen it's a little clearer than it is on my little screen. But like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now I got to drive home and get up and come back to work tomorrow. So,
yes. Yeah. Another day.
We're excited. We had the seating meeting last night. I'm sure everybody's chomping the bit for the sectionals this weekend. I think wrestling, like I said, we've got some issues with officials. We need to get some young people involved. But I think wrestling, the sectionals, there's some weight classes where there's going to be some dog fights just for the four guys to get out and make it to the regional.
26.
Our regional, the Crown Point regional, the Hobart regional, they're just loaded.
Yes.
It's going to take monumental efforts for those guys, those 5, 6, 7, 8 guys to battle and get a trip downstate. It's going to be tough to get down there. So
it is.
I'm hoping we can sneak a guy through, but we're going to have some just absolute career days and some spectacular draws to do it.
Well, this goes to you, Calumet high school wrestlers, female and male. You've got gold at your high school. You've got Coach Wadkins, and I've watched him produce multiple talents on all different levels, not just wrestling, in life. Okay. If you've got an opportunity to get coached by one of these legends like this, please take this opportunity. He's not going to be around for the next 20 years. I promise you this. And why you've got him, trust me, get everything you can out of him. Okay.
I'm gonna throw this out, Danny. I am in the sunset of my wrestling coaching career. And I would desperately love to get some young guys that are teachers, that are interested in being a head coach, interested in running some of the best tournaments in the state of Indiana, come in here. You know, I would gladly step aside and let a guy take over if he was full of piss and vinegar and ready to go. It's hard.
It is.
It's a rarity to find a guy to do this for 20, 30, 40 years anymore. It's hard. It's hard on a family. It's hard on the health. It's hard on doing it, you know, after working all day in a school. It's tough to do this. There's some guys that do this outside of the building. Danny worked as a pipe fitter in a mill and coached for 30 some odd years. I don't know how you would do that. It's hard. It's hard enough to do it inside the building. It's got to be monumentally difficult to do it from outside.
Yes.
Hey man, we've been at this for 2 hours. I have a face for radio. I know people are tired of looking at me, and I'm certain they're tired of listening to me.
Right on. Well, Coach, we appreciate you coming on and taking the time to put out all this information for us and to give the region a little bit extra.
Thank you, and I'm pretty sure that this was more than your boss wanted me to do last winter when he talked to me at the semi-state. But it's Rich. Is it Rich? Rich Ramirez?
It's Chris.
Chris Ramirez. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, Chris asked me to do something like this. I don't know if it ended up anything like he was suggesting, but I hope it was worth the 2 hours of time that we've spent. And I appreciate you and the guys there in the studio for all your efforts to run this thing. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, everybody. That's our episode for tonight. We appreciate you coming by. And in life, like on the mat, it's all about how you bounce back. I'm Danny Bell. We'll see you next time on the Pinfall.